The day 1, Leviticus chapter 12, verse 3. On the 8th day, the boy is to be circumcised. This is the order that was given for all Israel boys. What does that tell us? In Israel, circumcision was not a rite of passage. It's not a sign that you have become mature or adult. It's simply a mark that you have a covenant with God, because it's God who told them to be circumcised. But a lot of us sometimes have different meanings about the issues of circumcision, and we fail to realize the cutting of the foreskin may be done by different people, but the reason behind why they do it may be totally different from one group to the other. So let's come out clear that in Judaism, the circumcision is a sign you are a Jew. You are not a Jew unless you are circumcised. And that's why you can see it brought a lot of problems in the New Testament. When people are saying they are the people of God, they are born again, and yet they are not circumcised. Yet the Old Testament had made it very clear, for you to be a covenant person, the boy must be circumcised. And Paul had to deal with that matter clearly, so that it does not bring up confusion. What about today? What do you believe about circumcision? What do you think of the tribes that do not circumcise? They have other rites of passage, but they actually do not circumcise. Would the Bible judge it? Day 2. So the verse is saying, on the 8th day, the boy is to be circumcised. 8th day, the child doesn't even know who he is. 8th day, the child hardly is self-aware. So the parents who actually will do all the necessary things. But it's important, because if the boy doesn't get circumcised, there will be trouble. We see that in the book Exodus chapter 4, where Moses, after he left Egypt and ran away, he marries a girl in the Midian desert, and she knows about the Jewish custom of people getting circumcised, but her son is not yet circumcised. When Moses gets appointed to go to Egypt, back now as to save the people, you know what happens? God is about to punish him on the way, and he's about to die when the wife remembered, it is we who have sinned. And she herself, very uncustomary, actually circumcised her son. And as soon as she did that, the problem was over. So you can see, circumcision for a Jew is not voluntary. It is not something you can skip without spiritual consequences. But is that true of Christians? Does circumcision have any spiritual consequence of any nature? Paul tells us no. Circumcision or no circumcision is of no spiritual consequence of any nature. But we need to understand the background behind the Jewish circumcision. Day 4, day 3, I think. Now, we need to ask ourselves as we meditate over this issue, how do we deal with differences in terms of circumcision? Paul, after teaching that there is no need of circumcision, at least if he is to minister among the Jews, advised Timothy to be circumcised to 15, not because it is necessary or has any spiritual meaning, but for the sake of ministry, to actually get circumcised. And it just means that if you are among the people that are circumcising their sons, it may be good for you to circumcise your son, knowing you are doing it for social reasons, not spiritual ones, and that it will not add or subtract anything spiritually to your son or to you yourself. And of course, there's a lesson we learn out of that. That to all people I became all things so that I may save some. That there are things you do, yet you know they will not add any value, but you are doing them because you have the spirit, the soul of that particular community, and you want to win it over. You still teach that is of no value, but before they can even listen to you to teach that, they may have ostracized you and prevented themselves from hearing the gospel. And so it will be important for you to ask, is that something you do or not? May the Lord help us to understand that idea. Day 4. You know that this idea of circumcision for social reasons, for acceptability, is something that every Christian needs to understand. That claim by Paul that we should become all things to all people so that we may save some is something you need to ask. Are you so desirous to serve the Lord, so desirous to win people for the kingdom of God, that you are willing to inconvenience yourself with no any benefit, spiritual benefit, but so that you can win people? That used to be the challenge of the 1960s and 70s, 1970s, when we got saved and we were young, when the church women decided that to actually plait your hair is to be a non-Christian, is to backslide. And yet the girls in high school, in order to make their hair grow longer as Africans, they needed to plait it in the night. Now that became a big issue. So what did the Christian girls do? Since they know this thing has no spiritual consequence, when they go from boarding school, when they go for school holidays, they actually do not they do not plait their hair. They do it the normal way. When they go back to the 3 months in school, they now can plait it. One could accuse them of being hypocritical, but you really need to understand the concept of becoming all things to all people so that you may win some. That you interfere with your independence and freedom just so that you are able to be in fellowship with others. Insist on your way and you'll hurt the kingdom of God. And I think that will be very important. Day 5. You know the verse is saying, on the 8th day, the boy is to be circumcised. So you've come out clear that circumcision in the Bible is not a rite of passage. So if you are using circumcision as a rite of passage, do not associate your circumcision with the biblical one, because the biblical one has nothing to do with the rite of passage. It's just like some people get circumcised who are from tribes that don't circumcise. When HIV came, they started being encouraged to circumcise. Some were circumcised in old age, others at any age, because it has nothing to do with the rite of passage. It's a medical thing. You are having circumcision for medical value. Similarly, it sounds like for you as a Christian, you must be careful not to give a special meaning to something the Bible doesn't give meaning. So if your son is circumcised at the age of 13, according to the law of the land, he cannot get another card. He is not an adult. So don't cheat him that he's an adult because he's circumcised. Surgery can never make somebody mature, I believe, is a message we are getting from the Bible. And surgery cannot make you better in the presence of God in any way. But surgery may have other values that are given either by medical or even social. So let's come out clear that there is nothing wrong with circumcision. It's okay to continue circumcising our sons and our sons wherever, but don't do it for spiritual reasons at all. the 6. So, should the church get involved in organizing circumcision of boys? Obviously, since circumcision is not a biblical requirement, the church has absolutely nothing to do with circumcising people in case they start giving the impression that circumcision has spiritual significance. But if the alternative is for boys to end up going into non-Christian groups that are organizing circumcision, for the sake of rescuing our sons from getting ancestral worship values during circumcision, it's better for the church to organize the circumcision so that they teach the boys scriptures rather than learning and biblical values rather than them learning wrong ancestral worship values. And I think that will be something that will be important for all of us to do and to understand. May the Lord help us to come to where we are able to tell our son, these are the reasons why you are getting circumcised. It's also a sign you are growing older, but you are not yet mature. Surgery cannot make you mature. It is practicing, like Hebrews says. If you practice making decisions, making good decisions, that will be the sign of maturity, not surgery itself. And I think that will make it then easy for the young man to understand. Day 7. So, if you have come from a tribe that doesn't practice circumcision as a rite of passage of anything at all, you are going to heaven, irrespective of that background. Never start imagining that those who come from tribes that are where boys get circumcised are any better. The scripture, the New Testament is clear. It has no spiritual consequence. However, if you come from a tribe where they practice circumcision, you can stop. You can decide not to be circumcised, although it may have social implications for your son if he is among people who are circumcised and he isn't, or cousins who are circumcised and he isn't. They may have social problems, but there will be no spiritual consequence of it. So you need to make up your mind, make up your decision as to whether your son will be circumcised or not. Not on the basis of spirituality, but the basis of the social impact or medical impact of the activity of the young man getting to be circumcised. But may the Lord help us to understand the concept. However, the Bible does emphasize spiritual circumcision, where we are talking about somebody identifying himself with God, somebody removing evil out of the way and wanting to follow the Lord. So Paul tells people, circumcise your heart. In other words, let your heart be the one that will lose pretense, that will lose life of sin in order to commit yourself to God. And even if your body is not involved.